Okay, so I have to ask you something. Have you ever driven somewhere, arrived, and then realized you don't really remember the last 10 minutes of the drive? Like, you got there, you're good, you're safe, your hands did all the right things, but your mind was just somewhere else entirely. Or have you ever opened up your phone maybe to check one thing? Maybe it was the weather, maybe it was a text, and then suddenly you look up and somehow 20 minutes has just disappeared. You're not even really sure what you even looked like, it's just all gone. Or what about this one? You're lying in bed at night and the same thought keeps circling. The same worry, the same conversation you wish you had gone differently, the same why did I say that on a 3-week loop over and over. No matter how many times you tell yourself to stop thinking about it, it just doesn't stop. All of that is a form of hypnosis. It's not the stage show, not the guy with the pocket watch or in the dramatic voice going, "You are getting very sleepy." Not something that happens to other people to make them quack like a duck or bark like a dog. This is the real thing, the everyday thing that I'm talking about. The thing that is quietly running in the background of your life right now, shaping what you believe about yourself, how you actually respond to stress, and what you really think that you're capable of, whether or not you are aware or not. This is what this whole series is going to be about. But before we go any further, welcome. If you are new here, I'm so glad you found your way to this little corner of the podcast world. This is the Sit Around the Fire podcast, and I am Ashley Dillard, your host, a licensed professional counselor and a certified clinical and transpersonal hypnotherapist. This is the podcast where we bring deep transformation into everyday life. Think of this as a place where we actually talk about the inner stuff, the patterns, the programming, the parts of yourself that you've been trying to understand or to outgrow, or to finally make peace with for a very long time. And we do it in a way that feels real, it feels grounded, and it's genuinely useful, not just a bunch of theory and mumbo jumbo out there. I'm a hypnotherapist and a psychotherapist, and honestly, hypnosis is one of those things I could really talk about endlessly, because the more people actually understand it, the more they realize how much access they already have to their own transformation. And that's the kind of whole point of this show, this podcast. So whether you've been curious about hypnosis for a while, or maybe this is the first time you've ever really even thought about it, or you clicked on this episode because you're skeptical and you want someone to convince you, you are exactly who this series is for. So pull up a chair and let's get into this. Over the next 3 episodes, we are going to pull this whole thing apart. What hypnosis actually is, why your brain holds on to certain patterns even when you desperately, really want them to change. And most importantly, how you can start working with your mind instead of against it. Because I think most people have this completely understandable but really pretty limiting idea of what hypnosis is. And once that shifts, once you really get what's happening under the hood, it changes the way that you see everything. Your habits, your reactions, the stories that you've been carrying around for years without even questioning them. So let's start from the very beginning. Here's something that genuinely fascinates me, and I think it'll fascinate you as well. Hypnosis is not new, not even a little bit. We tend to think of it as this modern thing, maybe something that showed up in the last 100 years, got popular for a while, went through a weird stage show Vegas era, and now it's finding its footing again in therapy offices and wellness circles all around. But the truth is, humans have been intentionally working with altered states of consciousness for thousands of years. Thousands of years. Ancient Egypt had what were called sleep temples, and I love this. I think about this a lot. People would travel, sometimes quite far, to these temples when they were sick, when they were suffering, or searching for answers. And once they arrived, priests trained in the art of suggestion would guide them into deep trance like states. They used rhythm, repetition, low light chanting to create this whole environment that was designed to bring the mind into a different place, a much more receptive place. And in those states, healing was said to have happened. Visions would come, clarity would arrive, physical symptoms would ease. Now, were they calling it hypnosis? Uh, no, probably not. Did they have the neuroscience to explain what was happening? Maybe. I mean, there's a lot of really, really smart stuff that comes out of ancient Egypt, but they understood something very fundamental here. Something we're only just getting the science to back up now. When you change the state of the mind, you change what's possible for the body and the self. The Greeks were doing something very remarkably similar as well. The Oracle of Delphi, that whole tradition was built around the idea that in certain altered states, truth becomes accessible in ways it simply isn't in the ordinary waking states of consciousness. The temples of healing used incubation rituals where people would sleep in sacred spaces. They'd be guided through these specific breathing and these suggestion practices and wake up with incredible healing insights or even physical relief. And across cultures, in shamanic traditions in the Americas, in the Vedic practices of India, in the early Sufi rituals, you see this same thread, this same trend. Humans have always known on some intuitive level that the mind has a deeper layer, and that layer is reachable. Now, let's fast forward to the 18th century Europe, and things get interesting in a very different way. Franz Anton Mesmer, if you've ever heard the word mesmerizing, this is that guy. That's literally his name turned into a word, which tells you something about the impact that he really did have. Mesmer was a physician in Vienna and later in Paris, and he had this theory, which, I'll be honest, sounds pretty wild to our modern ears, that there was an invisible magnetic fluid flowing through the universe and through all living things, and that illness was caused actually by this fluid, blockages in this fluid specifically. He called it animal magnetism, and he believed that by using magnets and later just his hands and his presence, he could restore the flow and heal people. Now, was he right about the magnetic fluid? No, absolutely not. When the French Academy of Sciences investigated him in 1784, they concluded pretty definitely that this invisible fluid did not exist. But here's the fascinating part. His patients were genuinely getting better. People who came to him with paralysis, chronic pain, nervous conditions, many of them experienced real, observable improvement. The committee even noted this. They just couldn't explain it without the magnetic fluid theory behind it, so they dismissed the whole thing. What Mesmer had actually stumbled onto without having the language or the framework for it was the power of expectation, belief, and focused suggestion on the human body and the mind. His patients believed something powerful was happening to them, and because they believed it, their physiological tendencies responded accordingly. We would call that the placebo effect or suggestibility or the mind body connection. But in the 1780s, it looked like magic or fraud, depending on who you really truly asked. Now, then comes James Braid, and this is where the story really starts to shift and get momentum. Braid was a Scottish surgeon in the 1840s, so a medical man, a scientist, deeply skeptical by training. He actually went to one of Mesmer's followers' demonstrations, fully intending to debunk the whole thing. He was ready to really call the whole thing a bunch of nonsense. But something made him pause. He noticed that people in these so-called trances, their eyes weren't performing or faking. There was something genuinely neurological happening. The fatigue, the fixed gaze, the altered responsiveness, it was all very real. So, being a scientist, he started experimenting. He had people fix their gaze on a bright object, a wine bottle cork, famously. And what he discovered was that focused attention held long enough naturally produced a state of mental absorption that looked a lot like what Mesmer was actually inducing. No magnets required, no mystical fluid, just the mind doing something it apparently knows how to do quite naturally. He called it neurohypnotism, nervous sleep, which eventually got shortened to hypnosis from hypnos, the Greek god of sleep. Though he later wished he chose a different name because it's not really sleep at all when you look at it. It's actually a very heightened state of focus and receptivity. But the name stuck, obviously. Braid's contribution was huge. He took hypnosis out of the realm of the mystical and put it squarely into the realm of the psychological and neurological field. This isn't supernatural, he was saying. This is just how minds work under certain conditions. And then, my personal favorite chapter of this story, Milton Erickson. Erickson was a 20th century American psychiatrist and psychologist, and he is really the father of modern hypnotherapy as we practice it today. But what makes his story so remarkable isn't just his work, it's where it came from. When Erickson was 17 years old, he contracted polio. He was left almost completely paralyzed, unable to move, unable to speak clearly. Doctors told his family he would likely not even survive the night. But he did survive. And the road back, though, was incredibly long and hard. And here's what he did. Lying in that bed, month after month, he watched. He observed people around him with this incredible, almost obsessive attention. He noticed the gap between what people said and what their bodies communicated. He started to understand that the mind and the body are in constant conversation, and that so much of the conversation happens below the level of conscious awareness. He taught himself to walk again, largely through mental rehearsal, vividly imagining the sensations and the movements before his body could actually make them. He was, in a very real sense, hypnotizing himself toward recovery. And that experience shaped everything that came after. Erickson moved completely away from the rigid, authoritarian style of hypnosis that had come before and the you will do this, you will feel that approach, and developed something much more subtle and respectful. He worked through storytelling, through metaphor, through language carefully chosen to slip past the conscious mind's defenses and speak directly to the deeper part of the self. He understood that people don't change because you tell them to. They change when something inside them shifts. And his job, as he saw it, was to create the conditions for that shift to happen. That's the lineage we're working within. That's what modern hypnotherapy is built upon. So, with all of that as our foundation, let's talk about what hypnosis actually looks like in everyday life. Because I really, really want this to land for you, not as just an interesting, fascinating history lesson, but as something that you can recognize, something you can point to and go, oh, that's what's been happening. We already talked about the drive where you arrive and don't remember getting there. That's one of the most universal, relatable examples. Your conscious mind checked out, and your subconscious mind handled the whole thing. Every turn, every traffic light, every lane change, perfectly competent, completely automatic. But let's go further. You know that feeling when you're reading a book. Like you're really, really into the book and someone says your name and you generally don't hear them the first time. Like the sound waves hit your ears, but your brain was so absorbed somewhere else, you just didn't even process it as information requiring any of your attention. That's a trance state. That's hypnotic absorption. Or think about a really great film or TV show. The ones that make you cry even though you know it's not real. You know the actors are acting, you know it's just a script and the set and the camera angles chosen by the director and all the things. And yet, your nervous system responds as if something real is happening. Your heart rate changes, your breathing shifts, you start to tear up. But why? Because your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish very well between what's real and what's vividly imagined. It responds to the story itself. That's hypnosis. And by the way, that's also exactly why hypnotherapy works. We're using the very same mechanism on purpose. Here's another one. Have you ever been in a conversation, maybe a difficult one, maybe with someone who just has a particular way of talking to you, and you walk away feeling smaller than when you actually went into the conversation? Not because they said anything overtly terrible, but something in the way the interaction went just landed in you. And then for hours afterward, or maybe even days, that feeling is just sitting there. It's coloring how you see yourself. That's suggestion. That's one mind influencing another. And it happens constantly in ways we mostly do not even notice. Think about advertising for a second. The reasons companies spend billions of dollars on ads isn't because one viewing of a commercial makes you consciously decide to buy something. It's because repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity creates trust, and therefore trust creates action, usually without you ever consciously connecting the dots. That's a form of hypnotic programming at a societal scale. Or music. Has a song ever just completely transported you, taken you back to a specific moment, a specific feeling, a specific version of yourself instantly, involuntarily. Your nervous system stores experiences in sensory packages, and the right sensory trigger, a song, a smell, a particular quality of light, can bypass everything rational and take you straight back there. That's where the subconscious mind is at work here, you guys. And then there's the one I think is the most important of all, the one that affects all of us, probably more than anything else. The voice in your own head. The running commentary, the one that narrates your entire day, that tells you whether you're doing well or you're falling short, that replays the thing that you said in a meeting 3 years ago at 2 a.m. That has a very particular story about who you are, what you're capable of, what you deserve, what's possible for you. Where did that voice come from? You didn't sit down one day and consciously choose what it would say. It was built over time through repetition and experience and the messages that you absorbed from your family, your teachers, your culture, your early relationships. Someone said something to you enough times, or something happened enough times, and your brain made it a rule. It made it a story, made it feel like just the truth. I'm not a confident person. I always mess things up when they really matter. People like me don't get to have things like that. I'm too much. I'm not enough. I need to be smaller. I need to try harder. Those aren't facts, but they feel like facts because they've been running on repeat for so long that your subconscious mind treats them as settled truth. And from that place, it filters your experience. It shapes your choices, and it keeps you circling in patterns that can feel impossible to break. That is hypnosis, the most consequential kind. Let me give you a quick analogy here before we land this plane, because I think it makes the whole thing click in a really very satisfying way. Think about learning to ride a bike. When you first got on, you were thinking about everything: balance, pedaling, steering, trying not to fall. What are people going to think? Your conscious mind was working overtime, trying to coordinate all of these inputs at once. It took so much effort. It was clunky. You fell a few times probably, and then you got back on and you tried again, and slowly, through repetition, something started to shift. Your brain was building a program, storing the pattern of how to do this. And then one day, you just rode. No thinking required. Your body knew exactly what to do. Now, you could probably get on a bike after years away and still ride it just fine because that program doesn't disappear. Once your subconscious mind has it, it keeps it. And that's the beautiful thing when we are talking about bikes. But it's worth asking yourself, what else has your brain done with that? What other programs are running quietly and automatically that you don't even consciously choose and haven't consciously even reviewed them? The way you respond when someone criticizes you, the way you feel in your body when you have to speak up in a group, the automatic assumption you make when something good happens, that it probably won't last, that you don't really deserve it. that something will go wrong. The speed at which you go from fine to overwhelmed when stress hits. Those are programs. And here's the thing, and this is the reframe I really, really want you to hold on to coming out of this episode. You are not broken. You're not weak. You're not fundamentally flawed in some way that makes you different from people who seem to have it more together. You were programmed. And if you were programmed accidentally, unconsciously, by circumstances you didn't choose, then you can be reprogrammed deliberately, carefully, in the direction you actually want to go. And that is the entire premise of this work. That's why I find it so endlessly exciting. In the next episode, we're going to dive deeper into why the brain holds on to these patterns so stinking stubbornly, even when you're trying so hard to change them. Because there's a really important reason for that. And understanding it, so much of the shame and frustration comes out of the process. Your brain isn't here to sabotage you, it's protecting you. And once you understand how, you can start working with it instead of constantly fighting against it. But for now, I just want to leave you with one thing. Get curious. Not critical, not analytical, not trying to fix anything yet. Just very curious. Over the next few days, notice the automatic thoughts. Notice the patterns that show up, the ones that show up without you even choosing them. Notice the moments where you feel like you are on autopilot. And ask yourself gently, what program might be running there? Because awareness is always the first step. You cannot change what you can't see. And what you don't own begins to own you. Once you start seeing and owning it, everything becomes possible. So, stay tuned for part 2. Thank you for dialing in and listening in with me today, allowing me to be a part of your day in some form or fashion. I really, really appreciate it. I'm excited to bring you some more knowledge and insight around this and understand more of what this deeper work really is. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure that you like, please make sure that you subscribe. Your support really truly makes a huge difference. Also, share this episode with others. If you know someone who might find this interesting or could use some of this information, please hit that share button. So glad that you're here, so grateful for your support, and really excited to sit around the fire with you next time.